Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another day of movement meditations. Let me just double check that everything working correctly. I hope you're all doing good this morning. Yeah. So today I'd like to do a kind of subtle lesson that is maybe quite internal. So we're going to take a time, we're going to do little movements. And maybe afterwards you'll notice some things. But one of the things that I would start off by saying is that when you're in a seated position, we are limited in our rotational ability because of the static position of our pelvis. So because our pelvis is sitting kind of square on the floor, our ability to rotate is somewhat diminished. Whereas if we were to stand up and try and turn, the pelvis would go with the movement, and therefore we would be able to rotate a lot more. So what I would suggest doing after the lesson is just in your own time, stand up and try some of the movements again and see like what the difference is between the sitting situation and the standing situation. Okay, so just to start off with, what I'd like you to do is just to close your eyes. And just feel how you're sitting today. Are you comfortable? Is there a way that you could move or change your position to make yourself more comfortable? And then as you bring your attention back to yourself, maybe you become aware of your breathing. And what I'd like you to do is just spread your attention down through the length of your spine. The length of your spine, the whole length of your spine, coming down from your skull, running down through your neck, the spine between the rib cage, the thoracic spine, and the lumbar spine. And just get some sense for yourself. Can you feel that part of you? Can you feel that there is a spine inside yourself? It's kind of one of the unique features of the Feldenkrais method is that we do kind of bring our attention to sensing the bone of the body. In the one-to-one aspect, where we're working with another person, through touch, we're trying to clarify the bone. And in some way, the more we can bring our attention to the bone, the more the muscular system will relax. So Moshe was very keen on this skeletal awareness. So just feel for yourself. Can you bring your attention to your own body in a way that you can feel inside yourself that you have this long sequence of bones? And as you sit there and as you breathe, maybe you can feel some movement in the spine. And maybe you, for yourself, you want to change your position slightly, you want to adjust yourself. And yesterday's lesson, we looked at the midline. So what I'd like you to feel for yourself is, does it feel to you that your spine is the midline of the body? That it runs along, the midline of the body is in accordance with the spine, or, that the two are equivalent. You can feel in yourself that, obviously we're not symmetrical, we're not completely symmetrical. So you might have one shoulder lower than another. And all of this, the information that you can feel about yourself, and there's terms like scoliosis and lordosis and kyphosis. Really, all they mean is that the spine is capable of many different positions. So just sense in yourself, what can you feel? Can you feel some of the curves? And then bring your attention specifically to the spine, the upper spine that comes down from the skull to the seventh cervical vertebra. So if you want, you can just take your hand, and this point behind the neck, there's a slightly sticky out bone, and that's C7, or the junction between C7 and T1. And then you could just use your fingers and trace up the spine. Feel the spine coming up towards the skull. And actually, I'm going to encourage you to use both hands to do this. So each individual vertebra has some structures, has some unique structures to it. And those structures change slightly as you move down the spine because of the size and shape of each bone. But you might be able to feel on the back of the vertebra is like a sticky out bit of the bone that you could actually feel, you can touch. And if I were to show you here, you can see that there's this part of the vertebra that sticks out. You can see how it sticks out. And this is the bit that you can actually touch. So what I want you to do is just move your fingers to either side of that bit if you can. And then very gently, keeping your eyes closed, keep your breath really soft. Just rotate a tiny bit so that you look a little to the left. And you can feel that the spine just moves slightly, it rotates slightly to the left. And I only want you to do a fraction of a movement, like a millimeter. So you're just literally turning the head. So you're not turning the chest at this point. You're just turning the head, just a small amount. And just see if you can feel the movement of the vertebra underneath your fingers. So on either side of the little bone of the vertebra, it's got this back ridge, which I liken to a dorsal fin. But then it's on the side, it's got these two things called the transverse process. And it's kind of like from that middle ridge out to the two sides. And what I want you to do is see if you can feel, if you get your fingers like onto the ridge of the spine, can you just encourage one side just to turn a little and then to come back? And just maybe you can do it to one side to begin with. So I'm turning to the right. And I'm just making a very small movement. It's really subtle. Just to feel the way that the spine is rotating. Good. And once you've done it a few times to the right, maybe you can move your fingers downwards slightly, get some other vertebra, and then a few times rotate to the left. And just see if you can feel this rotation, this subtle rotation that's happening inside the spine. So each vertebra has the ability to kind of articulate to the one beneath it. And this gives our spine this kind of amazing ability to turn, because each bone can turn its own amount, and that, increases all the way up. So you can feel just when you're turning the head and you're just moving the cervical spine, how does the rotation happen inside your spine? Can you feel it? Good. And then just take your hands off, keep your eyes closed, and just feel down either side of the vertebra. See if you can get some sense of this transverse process of the vertebra. Again, to show you the transverse process. So this is the back ridge that I was talking about. And then on either side of it, you've kind of got this this ridge on the side, and then on the other side here. And this is called the transverse process. So you can actually kind of get your finger into that place. So once you've done that, what I'd like you to do is just move a little bit left and right, just using your head to turn left and right, and see if you can feel that you can actually turn from this kind of central axis of the spine. So you're not making a big movement, you're not moving your head a lot, but you're just moving a very subtle amount. Seeing if you can rotate very specifically from this, either this transverse process or just your sense of the spine inside you. And maybe it's a weird thing to pay attention to. Maybe you can tell me in the chat afterwards, but this is a very kind of subtle, small lesson. We're not asking for a big movement. We're not asking for much effort. But actually, maybe the effort is in paying attention to something so subtle. And see if you can feel all the way up the length of the cervical spine as you move the head to the left and to the right slightly. How does it change? How does the spine turn all the way along the length of the cervical spine? For myself, I feel a slight difference turning to the right than I do turning to the left. Good. All right, and take a rest. Just keep your eyes closed. Bring your attention back to how you're sitting. Just check in with yourself, see if you're feeling comfortable. And maybe you can notice if there's any change in your breathing just from doing that. As you become more aware of the spine, has the muscles around the neck and the shoulders, have they relaxed slightly? And has the breathing changed? Has your breathing changed? Not it's yours. Good. Okay, so now take your hands, both hands, and put them behind your back, and see if you can find this this ridge on the lower lumbar spine. The lumbar spine is formed of 5 big vertebrae down at the bottom. And he's coming in handy today. And you can count them: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these 5. Oh, his arm's in the way. Yeah, and they're bigger than the cervical spine. So the cervical spine vertebrae are quite small, and these are quite big. So as you've got your hands there, see if you can locate the spine, and see if you can get your fingers on either side of this external ridge, this outer ridge of the spine. And just very gently, just begin to move the right side, rotate a tiny bit. If you want to have if it's difficult for you to have your hands on this in this position, so just feel the spine first, so you feel where it is, and then you could take your hands away gently and just have them on the sides of the body, and just see if you can move the right side, turn the right side of the spine. So again, this is a very small movement. It could literally be millimeters, and a lot of it is using your awareness, your attention, just to see if you can feel that your spine is rotating. So I'm just doing the right side first. And maybe it's a kind of a slightly more global thing, or you're doing the whole of the lumbar spine, taking the right side of the lumbar spine forwards and then coming back to the normal position. Once you've done it a few times on that side, you could just try the other side. And again, as I was saying earlier, it's very different, this movement, in standing than it is in sitting. So in sitting, the pelvis is pretty fixed. It doesn't have the same rotational ability that it would in standing. So you really get a kind of true measure of how much the lumbar spine can rotate. So now a few times take the left side of the spine forwards. Again, thinking of this transverse process, this outer ridge of the spine, this bit here, and they actually get a bit bigger on the lumbar spine. And as you do it, think, along the whole length of the spine, and think what's happening. As you're just taking the left edge of the spine round, like rotating the left side of the lower spine. Feel how that affects the rest of the spine and the rest of the body. Good. Then take the hands away. And then just imagine sort of down. Use your attention to kind of go down into that lumbar spine. Very gently, just begin to take one side of the spine forwards and then the other side of the spine forwards. So it's like you're rotating from the spine itself. And maybe you notice a difference in the ability to rotate round to the right and round to the left. And maybe that's a difference that you would feel in your day-to-day life as well. It's easier to pick something up over here than it is to pick something up over there. But we can find it right at the beginning of movement. So just do it a few times. Take one side forwards and then the other side forwards, and see if you can just get this very gentle rotation in the spine. There is a bit of a limit to how much the lumbar spine can rotate, because each vertebra above it will actually kind of impede the rotational ability. So the lumbar spine is more for stability than it is for rotation, but it still does rotate. Good. And then a few times, just come back up to the cervical spine and just feel that you can rotate one side of the cervical spine and then the other side of the cervical spine. The left side forwards and then the right side forwards. Feel how that feels now as you've paid attention to the lumbar spine and you've kind of moved your attention away from the cervical spine for a bit. Just taking your head left and right, and see if you can make the movement originate at the spine. This left and right movement of the vertebra. Good. Okay, and then take a rest. Again, just feel how you're sitting, feel how you're breathing. Has your breath changed? Has how you're sitting changed? So, my first lesson this week I called ideal sitting. And in the Feldenkrais method, one of the things that Moshe Feldenkrais talks about very regularly is that the ideal, in many ways, is actually not to do with a posture, a static posture, but it's to do with movement. So, in some sense, ideal sitting would be sitting in a way that allows you to have freedom of movement. So, as we're working on taking the spine very gently forwards in these different ways, maybe you feel that your sitting becomes freer. You become more able to move. Your body naturally adjusts for that. Good. Okay, so the last one, what I'd like you to do is bring your hands up and just bring them so that they're kind of like you're giving yourself a hug a little bit. So you've got your right hand round towards your left shoulder and your left hand round towards your right shoulder. And then close your eyes again. Close your eyes. It's difficult to touch the spine in this area. Some people might be able to, but I can't. So what I want you to do is very gently take your left shoulder forwards and take your right shoulder forwards. Take your left shoulder forwards, take your right shoulder forwards. And you can feel that this is creating a rotation in the thoracic spine, the spine where the ribs join in. So from here down to here, this portion of the spine. And just take it really slowly and just see if you can kind of really originate the movement at the level of the spine. Taking one side of the spine forwards and then the other side of the spine forward. Can you keep breathing as you do this? And can you feel the relationship between the thoracic spine and the lumbar spine and the thoracic spine and the thoracic spine and the cervical spine? Taking the left side forwards and taking the right side forwards. And again, maybe you notice the asymmetry of the body, that it might be easier for you to turn to one direction than the other. You might feel a different sense of limit, like it's free to move in this direction and it's less free to move in this direction. And then you could just think for yourself, maybe that's something interesting about your body and how it's organized, you know? And maybe you notice it in other ways in your life. All right, so just bring your arms down and just bring your attention to the spine that kind of joins in with the ribs, thoracic spine. And just see if you can kind of get a sense of the two structures on either side of the vertebra running along the spine. And then this is in your imagination. And just feel the movement of your breathing. And very gently, just begin to originate the movement from the vertebra. Rotating the vertebra round to the left and round to the right. And just see if you can really feel that you're doing this right from the middle of you. And maybe it feels a bit awkward at first, it's not very smooth. Maybe you can feel a difference between one side of the movement, or going round to one side and going round to the other side. Can you make this a very subtle, small, comfortable movement that really allows you to track it with your attention? Good. And then move your attention down to the lumbar spine. And just see if you can incorporate the movement left and right in the lumbar spine now. And see if that could join in with the movement left and right in the thoracic spine. Good. And then move your attention lastly up to the cervical spine and see if you can incorporate the head turning left and right, and feel the ability of the spine to rotate all the way along the length of it. And you could feel that maybe it rotates at different speeds at different levels and different amounts at different levels. Okay, and then just take a rest. Just feel the whole length of your spine from your head all the way down to your pelvis. Feel as you sit there and you kind of picture your spine or you feel your spine, are you sitting differently now than you were earlier? And is there some sense that you could move in different directions a lot freer or a lot easier than you could earlier? Feel your connection with the chair, how your pelvis is resting on the chair beneath you. Maybe if your feet are on the floor, how your feet are in contact with the floor. And then, as I said earlier, after the lesson, just try this in standing a few times. Just to feel the kind of the difference in ability once the pelvis is free, that you can actually feel the rotation of the spine in a different way. Because in sitting, we fix the pelvis. It kind of limits the ability of this rotation. Okay. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoy the freedom of your spine for the rest of the day. Again, tomorrow I'm kind of obviously working on a sitting theme this week, and I'm going to do the pelvic clock tomorrow. So if you've ever done that as part of the Feldenkrais method, I think it's a unique part of the method, and we're going to do it in sitting. So maybe that's interesting for you if you haven't done that before. So thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. Again, just to let you know what I've got coming up. So Saturday lunchtime, 1 p.m. till 2 p.m. UK time, I have a regular Feldenkrais class, which is a full length hour. And the subject of that class is, or the subject, the continuous subject is self-regulation. So how we can kind of, take time to look after ourselves, relax ourselves, calm down our nervous system. And just, yeah, I mean, it's like a self-care practice, I guess. So if that's interesting to you, let me know. I also have a Tai Chi and Qigong class on a Sunday morning, and that's 9:45 till 11. And then my regular self-improvement Feldenkrais class is on a Monday evening. And Monday's class is actually a really cool lesson to do with the tongue and the mouth. So if you're interested in any of those, you can join my Thoughtful Movements community. There's a link in the description. Also, if you've enjoyed this and if you've got any benefit from any of the other lessons that I've taught, there's a link to my PayPal in the description as well if you want to make a small donation. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments. I'm not sure if the lessons have been bad recently or people just have been busy and the life's kind of catching up with people a little. But I haven't had any comments in the last while. I've only had a couple of comments. So I was feeling a bit worried. But if you are interested to and you want to let me know how you found the lesson, please just chuck down your comments in the comment section. Okay. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you tomorrow at 11. Take care. Bye.